All right, everyone. There's value in being able to see a business from a bird's eye view. Ask Howard Wright. He probably knows a thing or two about that. This unconventional Coug CEO started his career as a commercial pilot, eventually trading the cockpit for the boardroom. Today, he's the founder and chairman of Seattle Hospitality Group with ties to Easton Stoll Restaurants, Kenmore Air, and many more tourism-related businesses. I personally can't imagine leading a team of 100. Today, Howard's leading teams of thousands. And today, I'm excited for you all to join us as we talk about lessons learned, business advice you might not get in the classroom, and overall, an awesome conversation with a fellow Coug. Howard, welcome to the Cougs First podcast.
Thanks, Kelsey. Really pleased to be here. And what a great audience. I'm humbled to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. I have to start at the beginning. How did you end up at WSU? What were your studies there? And then bring us to the cockpit.
Sure. I grew up in Western Washington and had a fairly typical high school experience. I wasn't sure that I wanted to go out of state, but knew that I wanted to get out of Western Washington. And I thought WSU was a great option to land in. And there I was. So I had a great experience there.
Yeah. And then when did the airline thing come to be? I'm assuming that didn't start in Pullman, right?
No, that is correct. Many people in aviation, they start out young, men or women, looking up into the sky saying, hey, someday I want to be up there. And I actually was a little late to that realization. It was after undergraduate school. It was mid-20s, had some time, was still single, and thought it'd be fun to get my pilot's license. I did have a goal to get up to the San Juan Islands. I thought learning to fly a seaplane, a float plane would be fun. And that's what started it all. And didn't realize that I would be in the right place at the right time to be able to turn that avocation into a vocation. And it's a wonderful experience. Pardon the pun, I had a great ride. It was a 20-year thrill, and I'm very pleased and proud to have done it.
That's awesome. Some people may know this who listen, may not. My mom's actually a flight attendant for an airline. I was the WSU student who could non-rev back and forth on Horizon and was pretty darn spoiled. Once you fly that way to Pullman, it's hard to go back any other way.
Yeah, exactly. So you didn't think about us going through Washougal, did you?
I waved. Yeah. But yeah, I think that you're already right off the gate having a college degree, then going that route. You're right. A lot of people start that early and quote unquote, that could be considered late, but obviously you didn't end your career there. So what was that transition from being a commercial pilot to business? What were those steps that happened?
Yeah, I grew up in a business owning family of entrepreneurs. I always thought that I would be going right into that after school. And in a positive way of getting hijacked, I got hijacked into aviation. And it just kept getting better and better. I kept expecting to be like in a maze where you bump your nose against a wall you can't get out of. And okay, so I'll go back. And doors just kept opening up. It was an unusual time then. Might be hard to relate to right now because we're reading so much about all the unfilled jobs in aviation, transportation, service industries, and things like that. But back when I started, it was not like that. There were many more applicants than there were opportunities and positions. Part of it was the economy. Part of it, for those who remember, the Vietnam War was winding down. So pilots were coming home, hoping to find jobs in commercial aviation. So it was very different then. So I stayed. I kept thinking, I'll do this for a couple more years. I'll do this for a couple more years, and grew through the ranks of both the types of airplanes that you fly and the position that you have, whether you're in the right seat or the left seat. And after 20 years, I'd gone about as far as I could go. I was in the middle age, and I thought I would like to maybe brush some of the barnacles off my brain and get into the business world. And I made that transition.
I can't imagine there's many others that were sitting next to you thinking the same thing.
Maybe
that's fair to say.
Maybe they're smarter than I am. Somebody once at the end there, when I told somebody I was leaving, they said, they actually had a look of panic on his face. He said, well, what would you possibly do if you weren't a pilot? And I had so many ideas of what I wanted to do, but I thought, oh gosh, maybe I should listen to him. What if it doesn't work out? But it worked out. It worked out. Yeah.
What was the very first thing you did? Was it a business? Did you go get a job? How did you take that very first step?
I had been reading and studying quite a bit about business. I put myself through, it's called an executive education program in business school. Mm-hmm. It's for those who are not just coming out of undergraduate school, getting a couple of years of experience under their belt and then going to get a master's in business administration. But it was more for people who were business owners, creators, leaders. So I enrolled in that program just to see if these ideas that I have and these observations that I've made had some validity and maybe some sustainability, and seemed like they did. And I had a couple of opportunities to invest in tourism and hospitality. And that's how it got started. And you just keep doing and doing what you do best and trying to create opportunity both for yourself and for others, which is really important to me. I'm a very people-driven person, I'm told, and I like taking care of people. I like exceeding their expectations. I like taking care of people the way that they would like to be taken care of. And there were opportunities to pursue that, not without difficulties. I've been through a couple of recessions. I've been doing this for a couple of decades now, or a global pandemic. So there have been some challenges, but fortunately, it's been worthwhile. We've come out the other side. We keep coming out the other side.
Yeah. I don't know if you feel this way, but it feels that entrepreneurship is very trendy right now. There's a lot of people who romanticize the concept of it. So the person listening, how do you know what ideas were worth exploring versus what are just little distractions that may not hold a lot of water to them?
It's hard to know, right? Coming out of school, right after I came out of school, before my commercial aviation career developed and evolved, I bought a franchise, I bought a dealership, and I was 25 years old, borrowed a bunch of money and also had some seller financing, things like that. And 3 years later, we couldn't keep it going and we closed it and lost everything that I had invested. And I thought, wow, this is a lot harder than I realized. And in that particular case, there were some the national economy, some macroeconomic forces against small businesses, very high interest rates, 4 times as high as everybody is commenting on today. Prime lending rate was 21%.
Ow.
Yeah, mortgages were 18%. Right now, people are saying this is very expensive to get a 6% mortgage. When I was running that small business, mortgages were 18%. Unemployment was 10%, and the country was in a negative GDP. It wasn't growing, it was shrinking, the country. So those were difficult times. And I remember coming out of it. I'd just gotten married, and I remember coming out of it and just thinking, all I want to do is I just want somebody to take care of me. And yes, at home, but what I want somebody to take care of me is professionally. I want to go to work for a big company. I don't want to have to think. I don't want to have to do payroll. I don't want to have to talk to the bankers. I don't want to have to do HR. And pain heals itself. Time helps with that. And you begin to look out of your foxhole again, get going. So that was an early start, challenge, failure, restart, do it again, get it right, maybe different economic conditions. There's a little bit of a story there.
Yeah, I think it's important to share those because people don't realize, I think we don't share them enough. They're not public enough, and people don't realize how valuable those lessons are, though, because you probably won't make that mistake again.
You bring up an interesting point because I had an opportunity to speak on campus at WSU in February. So right now we're recording this very early April 2024. 6 or 8 weeks ago, I was in Pullman. And I want, people look at younger people, could possibly look at people my age and say, oh, you've been successful, you've got it all figured out. You maybe don't understand the challenges that I'm going through. I'm younger, student debt, and where am I going to go, and what's my future relationships going to be, things like that. I wanted them to understand that everybody goes through this journey. There are just exceptionally few people who don't, and it's hard, and it gets better. It really does. And I wanted people to understand that it's not an easy road for everybody. I put people first, always do, always try to. We went through the pandemic, which I think we all have pretty much exhausted that subject. But I just made sure that everybody knew when we were shutting down our various companies, pausing them, as we say, that we would be there at the other side. And I don't know what it'll look like, but we'll be here. And I will be here, I promise you, to welcome everybody back. And that was an important message to relay to people. When we invest in companies, when we look at opportunities, we have a holding company, an investment company in tourism and hospitality. We have 4 operating companies now, and we don't buy them, fix them up, and sell them. We're usually long-term hold. Not always, but usually we are. But the first thing that we look at is culture. And what is it like to work there? Is that a place that I would like to work? Is that a place where you would like to work? That's what we look at. And we look at a commitment to stakeholder values. Stakeholder values are loosely defined as taking care of your team members, your vendors, your suppliers, your purveyors, your community, and your owners, but looking at it holistically, taking care of many people, not just the value of the company. And then the third thing we look at are the financials, of course. But we could be looking at an insanely profitable company that has a really toxic culture and does illegal, unethical things, and we won't look any further because that just doesn't align with what our fundamental values are.
Where do you think the people side of things came in for you? Is that something, the examples of family who have had businesses? How did you know that that was an important part of business?
I just watched what companies were some of the best performing companies across a scale, not the most profitable company in the world or the largest company in the world, but more of what are the values and the attributes to companies that are best places to work for, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And one measure is what are called net promoter scores. Would you invite your friend, your relative, your family member to come to work at this company because of the good experience that you're having? That meant a lot to me. It's not my idea. Those ideas have been around for a really long time, longer than I have. Unbelievable. But it's important. It just resonated with me. Some people don't care, and that's fine. That works for them. I do care, and that's what matters to me.
Yeah, I think that's important. It's a simple but powerful thing to keep an eye out for. And I'm curious, did any of that exist when you were in your commercial pilot season era?
Yeah.
Or did
Thank you
that
for
come up at all?
asking.
Yeah.
That's one of the ways that one of the reasons that I landed here with this view.
Yeah.
So I'm in the new hire class. If you go to work for large companies, you go to a new hire class or you go to indoctrination or orientation. We were in it day one. There were 12 of us. We were all dressed identically. And the fellow from HR was introducing us, and we're all drinking the Kool-Aid. And he said, so who's the most important person in our business world at this company? 12 hands go up. Everybody said the customer. And he said, I appreciate that answer. The most important people in our world, in our operations, are the 12 people here in this room right now. Because if we take good care of you, we know that you will take care of the customer, and the customer will take care of the business, will take care of the bottom line. And they actually acted with that. And they still do decades later.
Interesting.
And it's really remarkable. This is a global, worldwide company with 86,000 employees, and they still hand out discretionary bonuses worldwide. And last year, they distributed $1.6 billion. And it's all non-contractual. It's all optional. It's all discretionary. And they've just said we wouldn't be successful without taking care of our people. Now, I don't have $1.6 billion to do that with, but,
Yeah.
But it's the message. It's the message, right?
Yeah. What else did that job teach you about business?
It's hard you have to make the tough decisions, and that's hard to do during the downturns. I think the thing that you can do is be honest with people and be transparent and treat people fairly and respectfully. And just it's how you treat people. It's how the people with whom you work, the customers, is how you treat people. There's a popular phrase going around right now it has been said that it is attributed to Maya Angelou, but it is also said that she may not have written it, but she's the one who popularized it. And that is, at the end of the day, it's not what you said, not what you did, but it's how you made people feel at the end of the day. And that's true at work too. Very true at work. Something I try to live by. We all do.
Yeah. And I think I'm thinking of every flight I've been on. I recently got back from Mexico, and I'm like, you're right. There's this just the blank skill of flying the plane, but then there's this extra layer of like how the pilot addresses the customer sitting there, and then how they are communicating and treating the rest of the staff. It can be the exact same quote unquote service, but it can feel different with words that are used and just the energy, and there's power in that. I've never really thought about that before, but now you got my wheels turning a little bit.
Good.
Yeah. Who knew the cockpit could also be a business classroom all on its own?
You have a lot of time to think up there.
That's fair. And you have to make quick decisions. And I think that's very valuable in business for sure.
it helped me be a really good planner. Something that I use at work quite a bit is in aviation, especially when you're in high, fast airplanes, if you're not thinking about your landing at least minimally 100 miles out, 20 minutes out, if you don't think about it, you're going to die. So do some planning.
Yeah.
And the same is true at work too. Whether you're running your own pet supply store, your own whatever dealership, bicycle dealership, car dealership, truck dealership, tractor dealership, do the planning. It's the planning that's necessary. And there's another term too that I learned about business, and there are three key words to what I'm about to say, and they can all be translated to business. But in aviation, there's a term that's if there's an incident or a challenge or something unexpected, you aviate, you navigate, you communicate. So in life, aviating is do what you're doing, plan, don't stop doing. If an airplane has a challenge, don't let go of the controls. if you're in a car, don't let go of the controls. And if you're in the kitchen and the pot's boiling over, don't run out of the room. And then to navigate, what am I going to do and how am I going to fix this? And communicate and tell people what you're doing. And we try to do that all the time. One of our companies recently, no injuries and no damage, but we had a very visually spectacular mechanical fire. And so it could be seen from a long way away. Fortunately, as I said, nobody hurt and no damage. But we got the word out right away. And we told all of our lead employees what had happened, that it would be on the news. It was on the news very briefly. And just full transparency. It helps people feel included, like they're part of the operation and like they're key. Mm-hmm. And that's a good feeling. So yeah. That's what we try to do.
Yeah. And I imagine that skill set applies. You mentioned it, but for those that don't know, your holding company and just you as a person, you have a lot of different things you're involved in. And that was one of the questions I was curious about is how do you navigate all of that and how do you prioritize all those different obligations that you have?
This is going to sound simplistic or trite, but I got to tell you guys, anyone listening, it's really true. And that is it's the people with whom you surround yourself. And I just try to hire the best people I can find. And they're certainly a lot smarter and more experienced than I am. And I empower them and I get out of the way. And I don't always stay out of the way, but I do everything I can to let them be successful. And they must be successful. It's not letting. They must be successful. If you can't lead, and if you can't lead with our values, if you can't deliver to our team members so that they can deliver to the customer, then we have a conversation to have because that's just a key fundamental value. And somebody asked me recently, I know it's your job to facilitate this conversation, but I think I'm going to go there. Somebody asked me publicly recently, what's the best business decision I've ever made? And I said, I use the word married, but it's having somebody by your side because we all are surrounded by lots of friends during the high times, the good times, the happy times, the celebratory times. But who's with you when the times are down? Right? Who's there to support you, to boost you, to console you? That's the important part. In my case, I got married in my late 20s and I have a very supportive spouse and with a career of her own. We've been there for each other just through the good times and the hard times. And that's the best business decision that I've made so that when you come home from a bad day, but more importantly, as I said in my early days of a failed franchise, to have somebody to come home to who will listen and support you, that's the best business decision I've made.
Wow. I was not expecting that answer.
I wasn't expecting the question from the audience last month.
Yeah. Yeah. Bonus points if they're a Coug. I found one. So
good.
Yeah, I imagine your success and the success of your company really is built on the shoulders of the people that you've brought alongside you to there's no way you could handle all the things you do without having key people in play.
That's true. And I'll tell you something else that surprised me. The last 3 key leaders I've hired, we didn't have a position identified for them. But there were people whom I recognized were really talented. And I said, we may not have a position for you now, but I'm going to find one because I'm going to snatch you while I've got you. I'm going to work with you while you're available, while this is the right time and the right place for you and for me. And we're going to make this work. And the last three people that has been true with. So seize opportunity, I think, is the watchword. Guess what? Life doesn't always line up perfectly the way you expect it to. And sometimes the checkers on the checkerboard get messed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice. Again, all of this I'm hearing is also a skill set that you had to have. Where did you learn to be this kind of leader? Were there books, podcasts? Did you have that example? How did you learn to lead in this way?
Just identifying people, the way you do. You admire people in your profession, and I admire people in mine, and networking. And just also, if you get into the studies of it on the business side, the highest performing companies have this type of leadership. And I remember being in a meeting, gosh, 20 years ago, when we were talking about adding a new board member. This is maybe 15 years ago. We were talking about adding a new board member. And another board member said, why would we hire a woman? Let's just hire the best candidate out there. And the answer was companies that are diverse in every definition are higher performing companies than those that are not. And so that's just the right thing to do.
I will tell you this. So I knew you were going to be on the show. As I said before we were recording, I was excited to have you on. But I asked for some questions, and one of them was from a business owner who was wondering like what a normal day in the life looks like for you. And I think to you, this is just your everyday, but to the person listening, there's probably certain things you do within your day and decisions you make, conversations you have that are intentional that allow you to do what you do. And I think we could learn from that. So do you mind sharing what a normal day is like for Howard?
I'd love to. And if I get too broad, tell me and I'll narrow it back down.
Okay.
But, we all are raised and reared in life and trained in life to take care of other people and to be good neighbors, good friends, good relatives. But I don't think it's contradictory that the most important thing that I can do is take care of myself first. So if I feed myself intellectually and feed myself emotionally, let alone have meals and things like that, if I give myself time to work out, time to think, time to reflect, then I can take care of other people and I have endless time for them. So that's a really important component of my day. And one might say, I'm starting my career, I've got a car payment, I've got a mortgage, maybe a kid on the way. I just don't have, you don't understand what my life, that's nice for you to say at your stage in life, Mr. Wright. It's not really hard to do when I'm starting out. And the answer is take 5 minutes. Take 5 minutes, just take 5 minutes, go sit in the car and listen to some music. And in my case, I have a meditation app on my phone and it just settles me for the day. And then I try to work out all week long. And it changes with my schedule and travel and things like that. So my days are involved with making sure that I can take care of others. So I take care of myself first so that I can take care of others.
Simple, but so who would have thought? And I think, yeah, you're right. If you're having to make decisions, if you're having to plan, strategize, communicate effectively, you're just going to be better at it if you're at a higher baseline.
I couldn't say it better than that.
I'm taking notes on this episode, everyone. This is really powerful. And I just appreciate the simplicity, but the application of that. It makes so much sense. So thank you. Well, as I mentioned, I told you it would go fast. And we're already entering the era, which is these 5 rapid fire questions. I changed them for every mini series. So you're the very first person to answer these specific questions. No pressure. But the goal of the rapid fire is just quick, what kind of comes to mind. I have 5 of them. There's a range of topics here, but are you ready, Howard?
I am ready. Bring it on, Kelsey.
In the vein of what we were just talking about, what does your morning routine look like?
Coffee.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a morning person. Coffee is important. Connecting with my wife is important. We have coffee together every morning. Doesn't matter what time it is. It's usually about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. And then we get started for our days.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Number 2, which college class is the most relevant for the business world? Either that you took or you just know of.
So I didn't take any. I was a political science and foreign languages major. And I surprisingly, and I mean that sincerely, not sarcastically, surprisingly, I didn't know that WSU had a hospitality program. Had I known it, I would have enrolled in that program. By the time I learned about it, I was well on my way to my major. and it would have added another year of enrollment. And I thought, no, I'm going to stick with the major that I have. So I think that the best course out there, I don't know the names of the courses these days anymore, but it's all about critical thinking. It's about liberal arts. Take some history lessons, take some drama lessons, learn to think outside of the box. And that's an easy term to toss around. But the brightest and most successful people I know of don't necessarily have just business degrees like accounting, finance, that sort of thing. But they also are well-rounded in history, economics, theater, drama, arts. I think that's really important. And it's one of the reasons that we a large committee of us, led the campaign to build the new Schnitzer Museum of Art at WSU on campus. There's that great big beautiful red cube across from the Cub. And I just think having arts on campus is really important.
That's awesome. And I see why you say that, but I think people wouldn't think that. They would be like, finance. And I love that what you said is true and very important. So good answer. Okay. Number 3, what's the most important skill a CEO needs to possess?
Everybody's going to answer that. Make sure that you're a good listener. I would say yes, comma, make sure you're a good communicator. People want to know what's going on, and they feel, and I do too. So when I say they, one time I was an employee for many other people over many years. And just to have a sense that you're valued, you're trusted, you know the direction that the company is going in and the purpose of the company, and to just communicate, tell people what's going on. Share the financials if you have a privately owned company. I don't mean every financial. You don't have to show your personal guarantees to the bank and things like that. But hey, we had a good year. We were up 5% this year, and thank you for your efforts. And next year, we're going to try to grow 4%. And we intend to invest in certain capital and various, whether it's in machinery or a new location, or we're going to hire a couple more employees. Just tell people. They have a sense of ownership. They have a sense of trust, a sense of believing in you, and hopefully supporting you, following you, and aiding you.
Yeah. Great answer. Yeah. I'm nodding my head because I consult small businesses. That's my business. And more of them need to share in those wins. Not every single P&L, but I agree wholeheartedly how important that is. So the excessive nod was for that.
And we do that at our companies. Everybody gets a presentation on how the year went and how the quarter's going, and just sharing the news. It's not always good, but sharing the news.
Yep. Okay, rapid number 4. If you were to design a WSU College of Business course, what would it be on?
It would be on how to lead and treat people. There are a lot of good schools and programs out there on finance, on accounting, on entrepreneurship. But I think it's about getting the right people. This term has been used before, getting the right people on the bus, and the people on the bus getting them in the right seats. So I think it's about people leadership. Not that accounting and finance can't be challenging. It can be, but a lot of people can learn that. Not a lot of people can learn people skills, and the people skills are really essential.
Yeah. Yep. Agree. And then last one, number 5, could you provide one tip or piece of advice on how people could network more effectively? In a room of Cougs First, some networking event, where could someone be more effective with that?
I think that Cougs First is a great organization. I heard about it when it was getting launched. I couldn't imagine a better idea to connect with Cougs and to support Cougs in business. And more networking, such as Cougs First, I think is the right direction to go in. I'm sorry I don't have a more pinpointed example for you. If it weren't for Cougs First, you and I wouldn't be having this podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm honored to be here, and thanks to Cougs First for bringing us together.
Yeah, thank you. And I think just getting in the room. I think if you're listening, get in the room, and being a Coug, it's like we already have that common thread. So make the most of it. And I know that Howard means this because I asked him before recording where we want to direct people at this end of this episode. And Howard wants you to be able to reach him, which is wild. So Howard, could you tell people where the best way to connect is for you?
Sure. Let me give you Kelsey's cell phone number. No, I had to use you there. So it's my email address. It's my initials, HSW at shgllc.com. And that SHG, if I wasn't clear, it's for Seattle Hospitality Group. So hsw@shgllc.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Howard, thank you so much for today. I learned a lot from you. I appreciate your time and your wisdom. And I just think it was an awesome conversation. So thank you very much.
Kelsey, it's been an opportunity. I really enjoyed working with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And go Cougs.
Thanks. Go Cougs.